Hello people, I'm Ginnymetheral. I am a fourth generation witch. Only fourth because we can't remember past my great grandmother. My point is, I come from a very long line of practicing witches. Today's video is all about that wonderful Wheel of the Year Sabbat that is Imbolc. So Imbolc is celebrated on the 2nd of February. Imbolc is known as the first day of spring and is exactly equidistant between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It is a very ancient festival and it's been celebrated, well, forever, really. It is quite a complex festival because there's a lot happening on it. So apart from the fact that it is a celebration of the goddess, the triple goddess Brighid, or breeds, depending on how you pronounce your Gaelic. It is also Candlemas Day for the Christians who took it over. For the pagans, it was a major fire festival. For the agricultural workers, it was the first day that they started ploughing. And for women, it was their day because it celebrated motherhood. For at this time, the ewes started to give birth to their baby lambs and ewe's milk became available. The ewe's milk was the first fresh dairy of the year. So this date celebrates the lactating ewe, so lots of milk. It celebrates St Brigid, it celebrates the ancient goddess Brigid, and it celebrates fire. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history about Imbolc, where it came from, how it came about, and what the Christian tradition, which was so strongly associated with this day, has just sort of appropriated because they were all pagan. So you can joyfully take back your own birthright, so to speak, from the Christians and appropriate it, all of their rituals for your own ends. So Imbolc is part of the Great Wheel of the Year and heralds the change of the seasons. And whenever you have a change of season, you get a fire Sabbat. This particular day is started on the 1st of February at sunset because you always start on the eve before the day that you want to celebrate. And it will then finish at sunset on the 2nd. As with all great fire festivals, the most important thing to do is to clear out your hearth, sweep out all the old ashes, light a new hearth from preferably a sacred fire that has been lit maybe on top of a hill, or your local druid might give you a flame from his hearth, depending. Now, we obviously don't necessarily have a chief druid or a chief pagan to hand us our sacred fire. So what's a quite nice way to do this is to make your own sacred fire, and the easiest way, of course, is to make your own. So take a new candle, and then we're going to consecrate it. So I'm going to start with a sage smudge stick. I'm going to envelop my candle in the smoke of the sage. Now I'm going to anoint it with some essential oils. I've made my own goddess oil here, which is a combination of lavender and bay leaf suspended in an alcohol solution. Using my wand, I'm going to set this spell with my intentions. And finally, I can light the candle to be my sacred flame. It is the intent of your purpose that will make this candle sacred. So however you choose to sanctify your candle will be the way that you should do it. As with all of the great Sabbats, there is an element of purification that is required before you start any proceedings. And this is easily accomplished by either having a bath, using smoke, so the ubiquitous smudging ceremony. And if you don't know how that is done, I put a smudging ceremony up here for you, which I did last week. Do have a look at that video. Once you feel that you're purified by being very clean, both aura and body, you can start your celebrations. Now, one of the great ways to celebrate anything on a fire festival is to use the fire to sanctify your own tools. So this is taken directly from our pagan ancestors because this day is the day of fire. The smithy would be the place where everyone gathered. The blacksmith would put out the fire in his smithy, and then a new fire would be laid, preferably with the 9 sacred woods. These were basically the main natural indigenous trees of our land. So oak, ash, hawthorn, elm, I can't think, beech, blackthorn, etc., etc. But if you are able to take 9 separate twigs and light your own hearth, then good for you. However, I'm not going to be able to do so. The farmers would take their tools, notably their plough and their scythe, whatever tools they needed, and they would pass them through the flames of the smithy. This would ensure that they were purified with the new flames of Imbolc, and also would bring coming luck for the next year's planting. For women, this is their day too, because of course this day is the honour of Brigid, or Brides, depending on your Gaelic pronunciation, which is spelt like Brigid. I'm not Gaelic. Well, only half. I don't think that counts, does it? No, it doesn't count. So I'm going to call her by the English name of Brigid. Now, Brigid was a triple goddess, and she had care for 3 main areas. The first one was healing. If you are a care worker or a healthcare provider in any way or form at the moment, this is your day. Women were normally the caregivers. They would have a lot of home remedies with which to ply the healing trade. And so they would use this day to ask Brigid to help them in any future healing that might come. Her second great area of expertise was in the smithy, because she is a goddess of fire. So of course this is why the blacksmith would hold this ceremony in response to Brigid, because she's the one who's going to purify and honour their tools for the next year. It was considered in certain parts of the country a good idea to have a female representation of the goddess, if not 3 of them, the old crone, the young mother and the beautiful girl. And so these 3 women were then, as the representation of the goddess Brigid, they would take part in all of the ceremonies as her stand-in. The third area of her expertise was poetry. Now this sounds a bit namby-pamby poetry, I always think, but to understand why this was so important to the Gaelic people poetry is where they held all of their cultural history, not just their cultural history, but their actual history too. And so it is really important that poetry was revered at this time of year. Brigid was, of course, born with a flame in her head, and she drank milk from a magical, mystical cow. I think it was a red one. And so hence, she became the goddess of all dairy products. And so it's a really good idea to create an altar for Brigid at this time. And onto my altar, I'm going to leave her some dairy products. Likewise, being born with a flame on top of your head, signifying your deity and your godhead, your altar will of course need a flame to represent this side of her character. Now our ancients, as I've said, would have women acting on behalf of Brigid, but the other women, they would create little dolls made of corn from the last year to represent the great goddess and her mighty work that she is doing in this land. I'm sure you remember me saying that snowdrops are very bad luck to bring into your home before today's date, the 2nd of February. Well, now you can bring them in. The snowdrop is of course sacred to St Brigid, because it was said that where her footsteps fell, snowdrops sprung up in her path. And a lovely way to celebrate your altar is to place some snowdrops upon it in honour of the goddess Brigid. However, if you don't have snowdrops, any white flowers will do. Now, who remembers the greenery that you bought in at Yule? Well, I still have some left for this very purpose, because Imbolc is the day that you burn any leftover greenery that you bought in to decorate your home on the Yule solstice. This is where you take your Yule leaves and burn them as an offering to the Goddess Brighid. If you don't, however, have any leftover leaves that you've bought in for the Yule solstice, then it is most acceptable to burn dried bay leaves, because they have a lot of healing, protective qualities and are very sacred to the Goddess Brighid. Brigid also had a great responsibility in being the goddess for holy wells. The Christian tradition immediately took this over. The Christian St Brigid has incredibly similar attributes as to the triple goddess, because why not just move the triple goddess into one of your favourite saints and put her in charge of a well, which people can purify and cleanse at, in turn becoming Christian. Brigid's great helper is the wonderfully red-legged oyster catcher, and should you see an oyster catcher on this day, it's considered to bring you incredible good luck. And so go to the coast and have a look, because I could do with some luck, couldn't we all? Also most associated with Brigid is the equal-armed cross, and so I'm going to show you how to actually make an equal-armed cross to place upon your altar. So firstly, we've gone out and picked about 15 to 20, I suppose, of these reeds. I'm going to cut them all to a similar length. So what's that? Foot and a bit. Now the most difficult thing about creating the St Brigid cross is the first part, when you're working it to start with. So take 2 of your reeds in a cross, like this. Take a third reed and bend it over one of the arms in the middle. Turn the reeds clockwise and take another and bend it in the middle over all the reeds that are there. Turn clockwise again, take another reed and bend it in half over all the reeds sticking out of that side. Keep on turning and bending reeds over the middle until you have formed a proper St Brigid cross. Once it's reached the desired size, you need to tie off the ends, and for this I'm going to use some gold wire. Ensure each tie is placed at the same distance from the centre as the others. Trim off the excess from each of the arms. It's now ready to place on your altar in honour of the goddess. I would love to know what you are going to place on your St Brigid's altar and whether you're going to celebrate Imbolc in any other way. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment and a like, because it really helps my channel. And don't forget to check out my Instagram if you're missing me before now and the next time I put up a video. In the meantime, I'll see you in a couple of days.